This week's show, international leaders meet in Doha for the latest round of environment talks. Has the world reached a climate cliff?
The pace and the scale of action is simply not yet where it must be.
A global deal requires huge financial commitments. Will a lack of money pose the greatest threat?
We need to start seeing the cash coming in now.
With green finance comes greenwashing. Pressure mounts on businesses to live up to their environmental promise.
I think the brands are perfectly aware and know perfectly well what they can and can't do.
Climate change talks have become an unmissable event for big businesses. We've come to France's financial hub, but many of the key leaders are not here, are they? 5,000 kilometres away at Doha, shaping the latest round of environment talks. The goal is to make economic growth and saving the planet go hand in hand, but it's not always easy, as French business Michelin has discovered while building its biggest tyre factory in India. Just a few years ago, this village of untouchables relied mostly on farming and gathering.
Nothing will grow here anymore.
Now, the fields and woods around the area are almost gone, razed to the ground by bulldozers. It's here that the French tire giant Michelin has built its new factory.
Today it's fresh air, but it's going to be in the future polluted air, and there'll be consequences on our health and life.
The Michelin plant, which is set to start producing more than 300,000 tires a year, is less than a kilometre away from the village.
This is a factory which is destroying our lives, our culture. This is what Michelin is doing.
Our guides are soon interrupted by Michelin guards.
What are you filming?
It's not private here. It's a public place. We can do what we want. We have a right to be here.
And Michelin isn't done yet. At least 450 more acres of woodland and pasture will disappear, buried under concrete. But the residents of Tervoy aren't giving up without a fight. In an effort to save what remains of their communal forest, Nagesh and others came to Paris in mid-November to face the giant Michelin.
We feel that many of our rights have been taken away by the setting up of the company, and we want to put our demands and grievances to the Michelin administration here. That is why we are.
The concerned residents have taken their case to the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, to prove what they say is the devastating social and environmental impact of the Michelin project on their lives. In the same way that banks have suffered a crisis, so too have efforts to cough up money for climate change initiatives. In 2009, rich nations pledged $13 billion to poor countries. With the deadline at the end of this month, that target is unlikely to be achieved. At the same time, developing countries are launching financial schemes of their own, but on a much smaller scale. On the ground in Indonesia, microloans or credits for green projects can go a long way.
2 years ago, Ibu Eti transformed her farm into an energy producer by turning manure into biogas. Every day she fills this well with 50 kilos of cow dung and the same amount of water.
I store the manure down here. You have to feed the digester every day to maintain the pressure.
In the absence of oxygen, bacteria is formed, which converts the waste into methane gas. This is then piped into Eti's home and can be used for cooking and lighting. All that's needed for this renewable source of energy is a couple of cows and a biogas unit. To install the system, Eti and her husband applied for a loan from the local dairy cooperative.
We assess the farmers to see if they're creditworthy, since many have large debts from buying cows. Then local construction workers, which we trained, see whether the farmers have enough space on their land to build the system.
The biogas program started in Indonesia in May 2009, partially subsidized and facilitated by credit. Setting up the biogas system costs around €500, a third of which is funded by 2 Dutch NGOs. Each month, the cooperative keeps around €10 of the farmer's income until the rest of the loan is paid off. The farmers don't just save money, but also found using biogas has improved the quality of their produce. The leftover manure can be used as a great organic fertilizer.
I installed the biogas system to use for cooking and to save money on gas. I had no idea there'd be other benefits. Now my vegetables are better quality and I don't have to use chemical fertilizers.
So far, only around 20% of farmers in West Java have installed the biogas system. But with environmental and economic benefits evident, more are likely to start transforming manure into free energy.
This street marketing company is another example of how being kind to the planet can be a source of income. It attracts its clients with the promise of advertising with the green edge. Here they're using eco bikes. Today, trying to look environmentally friendly without the credentials can, however, be dangerous. Greenwashing, as it's known, is on the decline though, as businesses realise there's nothing more damaging than being named and shamed.
These are the images which landed Japanese car maker Toyota in hot water. They show SUVs driving off-road through streams and over small boulders. A French court ordered Toyota to withdraw the ad campaign because it encouraged the destruction of nature. Environmental groups are often the first to alert authorities to this misuse of advertising, using catchy techniques such as the Pinocchio Awards to highlight the worst offenders.
We use the puppet symbolically for its long nose, which raises the question of truth. We try to expose the environmental and social impacts of French companies, and also the difference that exists between their communication, which is very green and pure, and the reality of their impact.
Nearly 1 out of 10 advertising campaigns in France uses a positive link to the environment as a selling point. The term greenwashing was coined to describe when this link stretches the truth or outright lies in order to promote the perception a brand is green. But today there's more pressure than ever to abide by regulations spelled out in an environmental code. This government agency has turned it into an online test known as an anti-greenwashing guide.
This test enables you to pose the right questions and to assess whether you can or cannot reasonably go ahead and promote the environmental credentials of your pen.
To help answer some of these questions, communications agencies are turning to engineers who analyse a product from A to Z to make sure it lives up to its promises.
Does the product contain toxic substances or not? Does the packaging contain bisphenol A, for example? How much greenhouse gas does it emit in its whole life cycle? We can quantify all of these parameters.
The results mean there's no more excuses for ad campaigns that lie.
I think the brands are perfectly aware and know perfectly well what they can and can't do.
Certain brands are now turning away from this type of publicity altogether, instead choosing a more subtle form of persuasion. 3 months ago, the supermarket chain Franprix decided to deliver stock to Paris via a boat on the Seine instead of trucks, reducing its CO2 output by 230 tonnes annually. But instead of a full-blown ad campaign, it provided the public with information.
Sustainable development is important for the company. However, we don't want to advertise. I think actions speak louder than words. There's no greenwashing at Franprix. It's just a policy that makes sense.
Today, the question of where to draw the line on greenwashing is evolving. Take this advertisement, for example, which denounces public transport in favour of a car which is ultimately more polluting. For the moment, there's no obvious right or wrong, leaving it up to the consumer to decide on what message to take home.
That brings us to the end of the show. Next week we'll be in Doha bringing you live updates as the climate change talks reach their crucial stage. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.